Hello, Aurora lovers. This is Dale Bone from Dale Bone Imaging, and this is Aurora Hunting 101. This is episode 6. What time of year can you see the northern lights? The time of year when you can see the northern lights depends on your location. In more northerly locations, it often does not get dark enough to see the northern lights during the summer. This may lead people to think that the northern lights are a winter-only phenomenon. They are not. Many southerly locations can see the northern lights all year long. Let's look at the time and date website and use it to determine when it will be dark enough to see the northern lights at your location. Timeanddate.com is a great site. Now, while it's nominally just a site for time and date, it has a huge amount of astronomical information, including sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset, moon phases, eclipse information, meteor showers, all sorts of things are available on there, and it's often my go-to site for a lot of that information, which means it does have a lot of options on here. What we want to look at is the sun calculator here, and it wants a location. I'm just going to put in Saskatoon because that's where I live. And it starts out by just showing you the information for today. So, we've got 14 and a half hours of daylight already. It tells us when sunrise and sunset is, which is useful, but that's not why we want to come here. What we want is information that's on this scary looking graph. It's a little bit scary, but it's not that hard to understand. What it's trying to show is when it's dark and when it's night and daylight and twilight periods in between for the entire year. So this is January to end of December across the bottom. And then it's from midnight to midnight during the day. So if we look right now today, oops, if I don't touch anything, I think I can lock it. Can I lock it? No. Can I lock it? Well, just leave it. So if we look at today for Saskatoon, so the lightest blue here in the middle is daylight, and we're going into summer as I record this, so the daylight hours are going to get longer and longer, so the blue expands. And the darkest part of the full night period gets shorter and shorter. And then these three bands is three different types of twilight, known as the civil twilight, nautical twilight, and astronomical twilight. Astronomical twilight's pretty dark, and I generally say that the aurora is visible during astronomical twilight. So that's my guideline for when it's visible. Sometimes it can, if it's really, really strong, you can see it in even brighter, earlier twilight, but the aurora has to be pretty bright and high up in the sky for it to be visible then. So right now, I would say, as for today, the time of night when I could possibly see the northern lights are from the start of astronomical twilight at 9:50 p.m. and then it goes to 10:49. 10:49 it gets completely dark until midnight, and it splits it this way because that's a different day. Midnight to 3:21 a.m. and then 3:21 a.m. to 4:20 a.m. for astronomical twilight. So between 9:50 p.m. and 4:20 a.m. is when it will be dark enough today for me to see northern lights. It doesn't mean they'll be visible, but the conditions are right to be able to see them. And you can see that this changes quite a bit if I go look at June 21st, which is the summer solstice, the shortest night of the year. Where I live, it's about 52 degrees north. We do not get true night anymore. In fact, we don't get it for quite a while, from late in May to early August. It doesn't get completely dark here. There will always be a little bit of twilight glow in the north as the light from the sun scatters through the Earth's atmosphere, and we get a bit of glow in the north. But it is certainly dark enough to see the aurora. Unfortunately, the aurora is in the north and the glow is in the north around midnight, so they're competing with each other. So if they're low on the horizon, it can interfere more. As they move higher up in the sky, we're going to have less competition between the two of them. Darn phone. So that's my worst case. If we go somewhere further north, we say search for a different location, and I say Yellowknife, which is in the Northwest Territories. That's maybe one of the more famous locations in Canada to see the Northern Lights. Well, there's one glaring difference. We have this discontinuity, this break in the graph. That's daylight savings time. So this is when daylight savings time started, and when it ended, it's just, that's just that 1 hour forward and 1 hour back in the spring and the fall. So if we drop out right now, they're actually getting near the end of when it's visible. Right? They don't get any, they're already not getting full night. And then astronomical twilight is from 12 just after midnight to 3 in the morning. So in a week or two, when's this? By May 3rd, they don't get astronomical twilight anymore. The sun sets, but not far enough that there isn't, it's like sunset. The sun goes down, but the sky is still really bright. This is what's happening in the summer in Yellowknife. You can tell that the sun never is going down because you get twilight. We just don't get very dark twilight. So don't plan a aurora trip to Yellowknife between, say, September, say at the start of, once you get into September, they're getting dark and some astronomical twilight, and then May. So between May and beginning of September, beginning of May, and I wouldn't try going to Yellowknife for the Northern Lights. So they do get some darker periods. If we go, I think, even a little bit further north and go to Iceland and look at Reykjavik, it's actually pretty similar. They're also they're down to less than, a little more than an hour and a half, hour and a half of astronomical twilight already. The further north you go, the bigger that change is. Further south you go, the more hours of astronomical twilight you get, and maybe darkness. Of course, you get fewer visible aurora because it's further south. You're further away from the oval, so you need a stronger aurora display for it to be visible. That's the trade-offs, right? I can see the aurora all year long, but I only get to see, I get to see aurora pretty often, but I need stronger displays for them to be overhead. Someplace at Yellowknife, they're almost always overhead. There's almost always good aurora, but only for a little over half the year. And this graph gets really interesting. If you go, I'll let you suggest you go look at the North Pole, but it's sort of the opposite of Quito, Ecuador, which is right on the equator. If you look at someplace like that, it doesn't really change. You got about 12 hours of sunlight and 12 hours of night all year long. But the aurora doesn't get that far south. And if you go to look at the South Pole is in here, you get the exact opposite. I hope that helps. If we go back to Saskatoon, I spelled Saskatoon wrong. Yeah. So what you want to look at is these two values. Find the dates that you want. Might be today, in which that's the case. It's the default. You can drag it around and click on it, and it'll block it in that one, so it doesn't move around when you move the cursor over it. And you want to look at the time region for night and astronomical twilight. These other two lines are noon and solar midnight, and I'm going to talk about those in the next episode. It does not have to get completely dark to see the aurora, so I used timeanddate.com to determine astronomical twilight for our chosen location. Northern locations may not get dark enough to see the aurora in the summer, but locations further south certainly do. With that, please check out episode 7, What Time of Day Can I See the Aurora? I'm wishing you clear skies and happy hunting.